I don't know why, I just love a good road trip movie. I mean, it's more the journey than it is the destination. And I know it's cliche, but man, it just speaks to me. Hello, my name is Daidarius, and welcome to the review of Green Book. So Green Book stars Viggo Mortensen as Tony Lip and Mahershala Ali as Don Shirley. Dr. Don Shirley, actually. Tony Lip is an Italian descent who is working in New York as a bouncer on the Copacabana, the most famous club in all of New York, I think. I don't know that much about New York history, but I'm guessing. However, the club gets shut down and now he is tight on money and he needs to provide for his family. Dr. Shirley is actually a pianist who needs to go on a tour in the southern states and he needs a driver to drive him around to these concerts. And since he is a colored person and the southern states is not that keen of him, since this is taking place in the 1960s, he also needs someone to protect him and use the Green Book. And in case you didn't know, the Green Book is a booklet that used in the 60s where you can, as a colored person, stay at these facilities safely. So basically it just shows you where the hotels for the coloreds are located. Nonetheless, Tony Lip is kind of a racist. He doesn't really like colored people, but he does need the money and this is a good pay, so he accepts. Then they drive off on this tour and that's our movie actually. So what do I like about this movie? Well, first of all, I like the acting, especially Viggo Mortensen's acting. Viggo Mortensen's acting is spot on. I mean, I never saw him, I actually just saw Tony Lip. His acting is just so natural and integrated into the character that you just buy the character. He just springs to life on screen. And I kind of understand why he won that Oscar. Sorry, this is embarrassing. Yeah. He didn't win the Oscar. Rami Malek won the Oscar. But this is the better acted role. Okay, my bad. Sorry. Okay, so he didn't win the Oscar, which is a shame. His acting is better. Anyway, just go to show how great this acting is. And then there is Mahershala Ali, which in the beginning 20 minutes of this movie, his acting was just fine. It wasn't great, it was just decent actually. I couldn't really understand why he was nominated for an Oscar for this role. But then you get past the first 20 minutes, because in the first 20 minutes he's just stoic, he's just proud, but he doesn't really have that much depth. It's just a facade and that's it. You don't really get to know him. But when they go on the road trip, slowly you peel the layers of this character. He becomes more and more complex and he portrays this character in a fascinating way that it just makes sense that he won the Oscar, because it is really well done. And especially one scene, I'm not going to spoil what it is, what's happening. It's just a scene in the rain. It takes place in the rain. Tony Lip and Shirley has a discussion, and just the performance in that scene alone, with the complexity of the character, the emotions this character is having, and trying not to break down his facade, is just mesmerizing. Now, the acting for the other actors is not that great. It's just decent, but these two actors just carry the movie and they really bring their A-game. Which brings me to my second point, what I really like about this movie, and that is the pacing. The pacing is just wonderful. The movie takes place in the duration of around 2 months. And throughout this 2-month journey, the movie has a natural progression of these characters' development, because they have grudge or prejudices from the get-go, and then slowly, by getting to know each other, they break down these prejudices and evolve as characters, evolve as human beings. And the progression is as naturally smooth as it could be. And it's not like the character development is too drastic over a 2-month period. It is natural. You actually buy it and you get to love these characters because you go on this natural journey with them. There's not really a scene that feels wasteful. Everything has a purpose. Everything has a meaning. And it's probably one of the best paced movies I have ever watched. And just the way this story is told is just mesmerizing. And the cinematography is beautiful but yet simple. Actually, just if you sum this movie up in total, it is simple. This movie is simple. It focuses and makes an effort on the right places. And since this movie is simple, it can actually focuses and emphasizes those places that are important and can give a shit in those critical points. And I just love the fact that there's no real conflict in this movie. And yes, of course there's a conflict, but there's not that cliche conflict where these two guys get to know and befriend each other throughout this journey, and then suddenly something happens and they split. Now we need to spend the rest of the movie with them coming back together. It's none of that shit. It is just about these two having a journey and then you having a journey with them. And just all in all, this is a real feel-good movie. Yes, it just has some depressing moments and really also show the time it takes place. So you of course have some race segregation and some prejudices because of your race. Dr. Shirley of course getting more of it than Tony Lip, even though Tony Lip is an Italian, and in the Southern States' eyes, he's a foreigner. He's not good enough, I guess. But that's not really the main focus. It is surrounding the movie and keeping it in place, but it's more that journey and that character development that are the main point. Now I can't say much about the score because I didn't really notice the score. But the score doesn't need to be memorable to be great. It just needs to fit so well into the movie that you don't really notice it that much. Now that doesn't mean that if you notice the score it isn't great. I mean, the Lord of the Rings score, I notice that all the time and it is impeccable. It is awesome. It is perfect. But whereas here, this movie doesn't need that kind of score. There are some places where we see these concerts where Dr. Shirley is performing on the piano, and at that time the score is great, but for most of the part it's just fizzing. It just completes the whole experience. Now there are a few gripes I have with this movie. First of all, there's Tony Lip's racism aspect. In the beginning of the movie, they're kind of hinting that he is a racist. However, besides that one point, they don't really dive into that much, and I wish they have used more scenes just subtly hinting it, especially in the beginning of this journey, since he's gonna drive around a person of a race that he doesn't appreciate. So a bit more focus on that will pay off his character journey to becoming a non-racist, I guess, be more fulfilling. But unfortunately, no, it's just in the beginning and then we don't really hear about it. There's also another aspect of the movie that needs to focus on a little more, and that is that Tony is a simple man. Yes, he feels a lot of things, but he doesn't really express them that well. He is very simple-minded in his expressions. And Dr. Shirley at one point actually makes fun of Tony on that aspect, because Tony says that the dinner he's eating at this restaurant is salty, which makes Shirley thinking that that is the only thing that he can actually review on this dish is that it's too salty. Then Tony actually gets to explain why, and you kind of sense that this is something he's very passionate about. And I just wish there was more scenes like that where he slowly maybe learned Shirley about this aspect of food and enjoying food and how you make great food, where it is not the spices that should give the flavor, it should just be the icing on the cake. It should be the main ingredients. But then again, this is more of a nitpick than it is a fault of this movie. However, there is a big fault in this movie, and that is the first 20 minutes. Now, the first 20 minutes is not bad. They're okay, they're decent. I mean, I didn't thought I wasted my time, and it is there so we get to know Tony. You're just sitting there and waiting for this movie to pick up to get going, because what we want to see is the road trip. So the first 20 minutes, I was just sitting there and thinking, this movie is overhyped. This movie is not even Oscar worthy. The acting is barely Oscar worthy. What I'm watching here? So what I'm trying to say is the first 20 minutes doesn't live up to the movie. It is just there to set up the story, but it's not done in the best way. It wastes time at some points just to show what Tony is like, and yes, those are important, but just the way it is soon into the rest of the movie doesn't really work. It's not for me personally then. However, when you get on the road, then the movie really picks up, and it's that point that you just slowly starting to fall in love with this movie. Now I can go on and on that this movie is great, but the matter of fact is that this movie is as simple as it should be, and it ends when it should, and the beginning is not as good as the rest of it is. It is fine, but this movie is simple and it works it to its own advantage. It is just, I just fell in love with this movie. I want to see this movie immediately. I want to buy this movie. And I will say that Green Book, it is worth watching in cinema, entertainment guaranteed. Because it is worth watching and worth buying on Blu-ray. Because you know what? It is an epic masterpiece. I fooled you, didn't I? I didn't. You thought I gave it a low ranking. What? No. I love this movie. This movie is almost as perfect as it could have been if they've just touched up on those first 20 minutes and then addressed those two aspects that I talked about earlier. Then this movie would pretty much be perfect. This is my favorite movie of this year so far. Everyone needs to see this movie. This movie is just beautiful. If you look up in the dictionary under the category of feel-good movies, you will definitely see a picture of this movie. You also see pictures of other movies, but this one will be present. So, Green Book, have you seen it? What did you think about it? And what is your favorite road trip movie? I think actually it's this one or Chef. I'm not entirely sure yet. I need to watch them both again. But that's my picks. So, whatever you think, comment on your thoughts. And as always, until I see you in the next video, remember to stay awesome. Bye! If they make a second one, can they call it the Blue Book? Is there a Blue Book? Oh, there is a Blue Book. Oh shit, that's the old... No, Blue Book. No.